Now, broadcasting on Radio Star Worldwide, it's time for Dr. Rademakers' Prescription for Transformation. Let's tap into your own authentic genius and live the life you desire. Join Dr. Rademaker for an enlightened conversation about our brain intelligence, our body intelligence, and our energy intelligence. And now, here's your host, Dr. Bart Rademaker.
Welcome back again, you awesome listeners. And you know, one thing I have to share with you, I feel extremely lucky because I'm actually doing something that I'm really passionate about. And that passion is helping other people. And that includes you who's listening today. And I get to do that anywhere that I'm at. And because of this technology, and I just really want to acknowledge Radio Star Worldwide. You know, Blade back there gives me a hard time on the radio show sometimes. And the rest of the crew, Dave and Ed, for making all this really possible. And again, what we're talking about is that prescription that's right for you and living your life by your design. And one of the problems that I really have noticed, and this is also my personal story, is the problem is what you don't know. Because if you don't know something, how on earth are you going to do something about it? And that's the big challenge. And after so many years of training in medical school and in fact, a total of 17 years of training before I actually started practicing, you know, there was a lot that I didn't know and I didn't realize that. And so that's what this show is all about. It's tapping into that intelligence around us so that we can live the life by our own design. But here's the rub. And the rub is when you don't know what to ask. And it comes down again to the quality of life is really the quality of questions. But the problem here again is if you don't know what questions to ask, then you're stuck. And that's why this show is really important because as always, I'm delighted with today's guest. I'm really excited about today's guest because she came out with this absolutely brilliant book. And I started reading it the other day and actually kind of sort of got tears in my eyes. And it's a book for women, but it's also a book for men. And it'll become obvious why that is, because if men understood women better and also knew better how to help them, then that would help the women as well. But it's really a book for women. And so today, very excited to introduce Heather Esposito, and an incredible background. She's been on TV, different series on the Oz channel. She's a very unique therapist that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on, or ask her to talk to us about, a gluten-free chef, and opened one of the first restaurants, I believe, that does that. But also an author, best-selling book, of course, the one that we're going to dive into today, coach and speaker. So I want to welcome you, Heather.
Thank you, Bart. I'm so excited to be here.
Good. Awesome. And so am I.
Yeah.
Because you've come up with this amazing book. And I love the title. I mean, it's a title that is so catchy. And it's called, what's it called?
It's called 28 Days Naked.
Uh-huh.
And it's as you said, it's a book for women, and it is a 28-day gratitude practice. I wrote it specifically because when I was working as a therapist, I had a client that I was working with who basically, she said that she wouldn't let her husband see her naked. And they had a child together. And I didn't show this, but I thought, how, he's your husband, you just had a child together. You know, how do you not let him see you naked? And realize after talking to a lot of women that they really felt so much shame around their bodies. And I really wanted to come up with something that would help women to get more in touch with their bodies and see all the amazing parts about their bodies, and to really just take the time to look at it and see, like, you know, their bellies that they don't like it housed the baby, you know, or their breasts that they think, oh, they're sagging. It's like that fed and nurtured a child. My intention really was to help women fall more in love with their bodies. And as they do, like, life just opens up and helps them to be more confident. And a confident woman is irresistible to any man.
You know, and I know that all too well, coming from a different angle as a plastic surgeon, And I'm going to, at the end of the show, have a bit of a, not a debate, but a question and answer, depending on your perspective and mine. But more importantly, I really want to dive into your story because I love how you introduce your book. First of all, you're thanking all these amazing people and friends of yours that helped you support, the creation of this book that I know was
Yeah.
somewhat of a challenge, like it is honestly for anyone writing a book. But more importantly is your unique perspective and background. And so before we really get into the book, because I want to spend most of the time talking about the book, but really about that intensive therapy experience. Just share a little bit about that because I think it's very reflective as to why you also came up with the book. Am I right?
Yeah, it was definitely a big part of it. So do you want me to just make sure I'm answering the question correct? Do you want me to talk about the intensive therapy part or my background and how I got there?
No, just intensive therapy. So because people, so
Yeah.
people can have an understanding of what you were doing before you wrote the book.
Yeah. So I have a master's in counseling, and I had worked as a intensive in-home therapist, which meant that I was working with kids who were at risk of being removed from their homes or just getting back from being removed from their homes. And my client was the kid. But in most cases, the kid who was my client, they're the ones who were displaying symptoms of the bigger picture that was going on with the family. And so I had to work with the client and then also the family as a whole. And I had to work with them generally about 10 hours a week, which is a lot of time to spend in people's homes, a lot. And so you really got to see things that most people don't get to see. And so it really helped me to see because I was in a place before I had taken that job. I was in a little bit of a wandering stage myself. And I was like, everybody knows, all of this stuff that I know about like how to eat and, how to remain in a positive mindset. And when I got into that world again, because I'd worked as a therapist prior and then took a break and then got back into it, I realized, oh my gosh, just the fact that she just couldn't even let her husband see her naked and how much shame there was around her body. It was so eye-opening for me, because we only know what's in our own world, when we're in our own world. And being in other people's worlds that intensely helped me so much to see what a need there is, for women to fall more in love with their bodies.
And I just want to acknowledge you for that because I think that's an incredibly unique situation that you found yourself in and helping these people and understanding that this is a problem in practically every single household and
Mm-hmm.
and what's beautiful is that you've helped these kids that have been in some sort of danger to lead a life that really wasn't going to be great for them because their home environment wasn't safe. And what a beautiful thing. I just want to acknowledge you that and I want the listeners to appreciate that this is very unique and very special and obviously, a lot of the reason why you did the book. And
Yeah.
the other question then I have if you like to share, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, is your personal journey and what you were feeling and I like the story about when you went for that audition. And for the listeners, it's really great, to read this in her book. And her website, by the way, is www.smartsexyliving.com. That's www.smartsexyliving.com. Soon to be heathere.com in the future, but that's not up yet. And you can get more information there. But share with us what that personal journey is, because I think a lot of people will relate to that.
Yeah. Well, I think just like every other woman, I struggled with body image. Growing up, I was always very skinny. My sister used to tease me and say, if she would say, if you stood sideways and stuck your tongue out, you'd look like a zipper. And, so I was shamed for being skinny and didn't like my freckles, didn't like my nose, all these different parts about me. And when I was 16, I was diagnosed as pre-diabetic. And the doctors basically said, don't eat sugar and you'll be fine, which you might as well speak Chinese to a 16-year-old at that point saying, don't eat sugar. And so I continued to eat sugar and I felt crappy most of my adult life. Extreme fatigue, my menstrual cycles were horrendous, and I suffered from a low-grade depression. And I got into counseling solely because I was involved with high school kids, working with high school kids, and I was working with kids with eating disorders and all these things. And I thought, well, let me get a master's in counseling because I seem to always be helping people. And so I got the master's in counseling and started working as a therapist. And at that point, I worked as a therapist at a group home. And what I found, what was going on with the kids was parallel to what was going on with me. I started to realize, there's so many tools, but they're feeding themselves things that aren't supporting health. And I started like having an awakening to what am I doing to my own body? And I had a day where it was around Christmas time. I laid in bed and I didn't get out of bed for 24 hours. And I thought about 5 different ways to kill myself. And literally, I had some good ways to do this. And then I remembered about this book that I read that talked about how sugar caused depression. And so I made a deal with myself and I said, okay, give yourself a week, don't eat sugar. And if you feel better, then maybe there's something here and you might be able to actually fix this. And then I said also, if you don't feel better by the end of the week, go ahead and kill yourself. I mean, what's another week at this point? So I went through the week, didn't eat sugar. And this was around Christmas time too. So it wasn't like it was an easy, feat because there was sugar all around. But by the end of the week, I felt so much better. And I was able to see myself much more clearly without having the fog of the sugar. And I really started seeing how much food impacted how I felt. And that brought me to then learning about different food allergies and sensitivities. I became a health coach. And then I started working with women in that area because I realized that they can talk in therapy for years and years, but if we don't change what's going on inside of their bodies and the energy that they're putting inside of their bodies, it's not going to make that much of a difference. So I became a health coach, and then I went to culinary school because I was the worst cook in the world and figured I needed to learn how to eat. And I became a chef. And as you mentioned, I ended up opening the country's first bakery. It's 100% free of gluten, dairy, eggs, soy, corn, and refined sugar.
Wow.
And that was really,
awesome.
That was more selfish because I had such a sweet tooth at the time and a ton of food allergies. So I created stuff that I could eat and got to have really great experiences with that. But I love, having the bakery was great, but I really loved helping people. And I got back into coaching and doing some therapy stuff because I saw that, really people need people to come alongside them and take their hand, and walk them down the journey. So it's been amazing for me because I know when I eat sugar, I get depressed right away. So I just don't.
Wow, what an amazing story, Heather. And again, I want to commend you because, there's so many people in this world that, are preaching how to be better and, they go to all these different kinds of programs. But you've actually experienced this either personally or been right in the midst of the chaos and the turmoil that just happens to so many people, which is so unfortunate. I know that you and I have talked about this with our team of wonderful human beings that we like to work with, and about the pain and suffering that's around us. And being able to see that firsthand is just a completely different experience. And what a gift that you have for the rest of the world. And what I like to do is I really want to jump into the book, as soon as we go for the commercial break. But one thing I want to add right now is, some of your messages that are important is that food and lifestyle really controls how we live and how we feel, and that we have control over that life doesn't have to be that difficult. And sugar is the devil. It is addictive. And,
Yes.
and what's interesting with that is that there's a funny thought here that goes around that, if we removed all refined sugar, then companies that were selling antidepressants would soon go out of business.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Because it's such a big issue.
Absolutely.
So what I like to do, this is Dr. Bart Rademacher talking to the amazing Heather Esposito, came out with a best-selling book, 28 Days Naked. And this is your prescription for your transformation. #real people, #real conversations. And we'll be right back after this break.
We'll be back with Dr. Rademacher right after these. It's people's secrets that make them interesting. People have been trusting their secrets to longtime business journalist Judy Schreiner for the last 25 years. And now you can hear them too on Radio Star Worldwide every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. So have you been to the Horse and Cow yet? The Horse and Cow is a bar that caters to the submariner fleets and has been doing it for over 60 years. They've been in San Diego, San Francisco, Bremerton, and Guam. Today, they are famous for their burgers and hot wings and their signature drink, New Quaist. On their show, they talk with the brewing houses and distillers, liquor distributors, and patrons of the Horse and Cow. Yes, the Horse and Cow has a reputation for being an off-the-hook bar for submariners. But everyone is welcome, so pull up a chair and join the fun. And if you can't make it to the Horse and Cow Live, listen every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on Radio Star Worldwide. It's happy hour at the Horse and Cow. Welcome back to Dr. Rademaker's Prescription for Transformation. And now, once again, your host, Dr. Bart Rademaker.
Welcome back, and this is Dr. Bart Rademaker, Prescription for Your Transformation. Hashtag real people, hashtag real conversations. And I'm so lucky to be talking to this amazing Heather Esposito with her book, 28 Days Naked. Her website, just so you know, is smartsexyliving.com. And right before the break, we were talking about her and her background. But right now, I really want to dive into this amazing book. And if Heather lets me, I'd like to go from beginning to end, covering the whole book, so that people get a great idea of what this is all about. So it really starts off with pretty much the first chapter, why this book, and what is that journey. And I'm looking at it right now, and I want you to share with the listeners, what that journey is about.
Well, the journey really takes you, each day focusing on a very specific and different body part. And there's a process that I have the readers go through in the morning and after, like throughout the day and in the evening. And the intention is that really, they're going to be focused on themselves and their body in a way that most people find a little bit scary. But what my clients tell me is, like, once they get over the initial, fear of it, they see themselves for the brilliance that they are. So each morning, I have them set a timer for a minute, and they get the gift of just looking at themselves naked in the mirror. And
wait! Before we get to that, because I want to go step by step, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Because there's two really key things that I want the listeners to know about. And at the end of the first chapter says, 28 days of being open to the magic of gratitude of your body. 28 days of experiencing shifts that you have been wanting. 28 days of seeing yourself with new eyes. 28 days of pure love. Wow. And I like how you start the end of that chapter by saying, or the end of the chapter by saying, are you in? Wow, what a great call to action.
Thanks.
I mean, who wouldn't want that, right?
Right. And as you know, in working with people that who doesn't want that? And sometimes it can be scary in the process when, we first jump into that. And it really, once we get into it, realize, this isn't as scary as we thought it is. So many women I talk to, they're like, I'm not looking at myself naked. Nope. But once, when I invite them, like, as a coach, okay, this is just do it for this amount of time. And then they're like, okay. And then they're like, okay, it's not so hard. When they realize what the result is of seeing themselves with new eyes, of having that pure love for themselves. It's a magical journey.
But then you start by saying the two words that change everything. And that's really powerful. I mean, when I read that, oh my gosh, I got to read this chapter now. So what are the two words? Are you there?
Words. Yep, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So the two words that change everything, and you have it. I love what you've done here. You've got this quote from Oprah Winfrey, and it's thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And her quote, can I read her quote?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So her quote is, I started out giving thanks for small things, and the more thankful I became, the more my bounty increased. That's because what you focus on expands. And when you focus on the goodness in your life, you create more of it. Opportunities, relationships, even money flowed my way when I learned to be grateful no matter what happened in my life. And, those two words, thank you, change so much in our lives. And in the book, I talked about, how I saw this firsthand, and not give it away the full story, but I had experienced being with somebody who was formerly homeless, and he was so grateful for such small things. And then I've also been around people, and tell one story in particular, who were, billionaires, and they were just like, so ungrateful for these amazing things in their lives. And so they may have success as the world sees it, but they were so unfulfilled because they just didn't have a sense or an attitude of gratitude.
Right. And it's so true. And you talk to the most successful people in the world, and then we like to ask them what's their secret, and the secret is gratitude. You're just being grateful, and that's one of the cool things that we get to enlighten people when we coach. And I also came out with my book, as 52-week success plan. And the very first chapter is also about gratitude, and it's coming from that place, coming from that state, beautiful state, if you like, where things are just so different. And so what I also like is that you're also pre-framing everyone in your book when you talk, and we'll go into the first chapter in a second, or the first day chapter, if you will. But it is about that awareness and inspiration and legacy. I love that, and what you write here about the legacy, that even if a woman doesn't have a daughter, that there's always another woman or younger woman, younger girl, looking up towards them as a model. And what a great frame for people to know and be inspired to make things different. And the perspective, feeling better physically, feeling better emotionally, being attractive, and then your hope for everyone. What a beautiful way to set the stage, to inspire, to have someone feel very comfortable to start this journey that you say is scary.
Thank you.
So, chapter 1, first day.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So, as I mentioned, is I started at kind of at the top, just at the top with our hair. I figured I'd kind of work my way down the body, and hair is for some of us as women, and I guess it's the same for men. I don't know. I haven't talked to men about their feelings about their hair, but majority of us, we wish that we had curly hair, or we wish that we had straight hair, or whatever. We always want somebody else's hair. And so it really, just walk through how our hair is so amazing in what it does for us. The story that I share in it is all about, I have a friend who has alopecia, which is an autoimmune disease where it attacks your hair follicles. And so she's lost her hair. And it made me like, oh my gosh, all the things that I hate about my hair, the frizziness, like how fortunate am I that I have my hair? And as I was saying earlier, is that there's a process that, first thing in the morning is just taking the time, setting a timer and looking at themselves naked in the mirror, just scanning the body from head to toe, and just, stand in all the brilliance that is their body. And for that day of just going through each day, it's, when you're focusing on different parts, looking at your hair, and I have incantations for each day, which are very similar to, what a lot of people know as affirmations, saying the statement about that body part. And so for day one, it's all about hair. And, my hair is amazing. I deeply and completely love and accept my glorious hair. And, I know that even, when I say incantations or affirmations, whatever somebody wants to call them, there are times when I say them and I'm like, yep, I said it, but I don't believe it. And so what I have the readers do is then to write down 5 things that they are or that they could be grateful for about their hair. And as they do that and go throughout the day, you use those to express gratitude for their hair. Even when their hair is not styling the way that they want it to, expressing gratitude that they have it. And, throughout the day, just repeating that incantation. And then the end of the day, just reviewing the 5 reasons to be grateful for their hair and just saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. As they look at their hair, not just on their head, but on their bodies, for their hair, and that their hair is uniquely theirs, and like nobody else's. So that's the process, and that's day one.
I love it. I love that, and I have to make it a mission. I really like my hair. I got great hair. My brother doesn't, but I got great hair, and so I'm not complaining. Yeah, maybe I like it to be a little blonder, and sometimes, I'm gonna be honest here. Sometimes, I get convinced to put some hair streaks in there. It just looks better. But I love the idea here, the whole idea of helping someone just starting to be more aware of themselves and the simple things that they could be grateful for. And so not necessarily waiting until you don't have something to realize, oh my gosh, you know what, I wish I still had this, including hair. But also recognizing, yes, that, and as you say in your book, even the color of the hair. I know you divulged the color of your hair, that gray that you don't necessarily like,
yes.
but you're really appreciative of the hair. But you could also just be appreciative of the gray hair and just recognizing that fact. And there is a great book, and I know you know about this, by Shamin Shirzad, Positive Intelligence, and where it helps us just simply be dialed in to being much more aware of what it is that we can be grateful for. A lot of the things that we just take for granted, even simply the foods that we eat, the smells that we experience, that we just simply take those for granted. And you do the same thing for your body. I love it. It's amazing.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Day 2. What happens then?
Day 2 is all about our eyes. And I love, I start each day with a quote. And today's quote was, the day 2's quote is by Audrey Hepburn. And it says, for beautiful eyes, look for the good in others. For beautiful lips, speak only words of kindness. And for poise, walk with the knowledge that you are never alone. Eyes are such a big window into our soul, as we've all heard. And, having worked as a therapist, working with so many people, there's so much information that we can get from people, just by looking into their eyes, and so much can be communicated. And I don't know about you, but I often don't, I go throughout my day and I don't really think much about my eyes. They're there and I see stuff, but I don't often take the time to be like, oh my gosh, how brilliant is it that right now I can look out and I can see so many different colors, so many different, brightness, so many different contrasts. And when you can live in that state of just looking at things, and even if you're looking at something that's ugly, just being grateful for the fact that you can see something. I have a cousin who's blind. I didn't say that in the book, but having grown up with around someone who's blind, it really makes you think differently about how you see the world. And even though I had a cousin who's blind,
do we lose you there for a second?
No,
I'm here.
Okay, so that must be on my end. I'm actually down here in Tennessee, and sometimes the reception isn't that great. So what I like to do is, right before we go into the break, Heather, just briefly just share with us, incantations. I know you mentioned that briefly before, and sometimes people aren't understanding the real difference between an affirmation and incantation. But I love this one that says, I love my eyes. I see myself in the world clearly. My eyes give the light to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what is the real difference between incantation and an affirmation?
The biggest difference between an affirmation and an incantation is an affirmation, often people say it and there's not much energy or emotion behind it. An incantation is really getting your energy behind it, adding emotion to it. And, you can say, I love my eyes. I see myself in the world clearly. My eyes give light to the world. Not that, inspiring, but when somebody gets themselves up, stands up, puts their shoulders back, puts a smile on their face. I love my eyes. I see myself in the world clearly. My eyes give light to the world. It sends such a deeper message to the whole entire body and helps raise the vibration when you add in your whole body into saying it versus just saying it with your mouth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and that's really interesting what you say there. And I know you're also an energy healer, just like myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, the key thing here is our experience, as much as we think is just happening in our head, it is a whole experience. And we talk about holons, which means the whole body. Every single cell, every single molecule is within that experience. And to exclude that really limits you. And I love what you said, that you incorporate an incantation really as a statement of fact. You make a decision, you own it, and you own it throughout. And so it really allows you to manifest that energy so much more strongly versus, like I agree with you about affirmations. And it almost sounds like you said that affirmations are like our shoulds. We should be respectful and we should do this, which are all true. But the incantation, it sounds like you're saying that you really get to own it. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, the incantation, the definition is uttering words of purporting to have magical power. And, when you think, oh, I'm going to say this and this is going to have magical powers, it changes how we say it.
Right.
And, I love what you said. It really involves every soul and molecule, so that your whole body and mind are all in alignment.
I love it. I love it. Well, listeners, this is Dr. Bart Rademacher, prescription for your transformation, #RealPeople, #RealConversation, talking to this absolutely wonderful and delightful Heather Esposito, 28 Days Naked. Her website is smartsexyliving.com, and we will be right back after these messages.
We'll be back with Dr. Rademacher right after these.
Hi, it's Blade, and I host a show right here on the Star Worldwide Networks. As an at least 30-year radio veteran, I have a tale or two to tell, and I've talked to them all.
Radio personality.
Now that's just nasty.
But I can't hear you, though, because the music is so loud.
You'll enjoy the show. It's weekly on Fridays live at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can catch all the shows on Star Worldwide at any time on demand.
All day, every day.
And hey, if you'd like to do your own show, give us a call or email, and we'll give you your own show. You'll be free to do whatever you want.
Why are people against the LGBT community?
We'll provide the internet bandwidth, the website for your show, and the studio.
It's very intense, very surreal.
This is the future.
Yeah, it's the real deal.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to
guys getting hits and jogging down the...
And with an eye to the future.
And you can do the show from anywhere in the world at any time.
Don Cromwell Live. Here it is, a beautiful Tuesday evening here in L.A.
Join on. It's the new frontier.
It's a new frontier.
It's awesome. The Star Worldwide Networks.
Do you like the rock and roll way of doing things? How would you like to learn how to apply them to your business? Then tune in to the Tim Gillette Radio Show every Tuesday on Radio Star Worldwide. Tim Gillette is the creator of Rock and Roll Keys to Business Success, using music, motorcycles, and mentorship to teach entrepreneurs to become leaders in their industry. Join Tim and his guest every Tuesday at high noon Eastern on Radio Star Worldwide. Welcome back to Dr. Rademacher's Prescription for Transformation. And now, once again, your host, Dr. Bart Rademacher.
So welcome again, Dr. Bart Rademacher, prescription for your transformation. And here's your prescription for today. Let's get naked. Now,
Yes.
but you get to do that on your own, just so we know that for clarity's sake. And I am so delighted to be talking to you, Heather. 28 Days Naked, quite a revolutionary book, I might add, to help women all over the world be able to recognize the beauty within themselves. And beauty is something that I'm very, very passionate about. And at the end of the show, I'd like to tap into that just a little bit. I just have a little bit of a debate with you on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, this is about you. This is about this wonderful book. And I love what you say right here. We have 2 ears and 1 tongue so that we would listen more and talk less. Diogenes. What's up with that?
So day 3 is all about ears to hear. And, I think we all experience, we go through life, and oftentimes, people are so busy talking that they don't listen, to really what's going on. And even just listening to the silence, so much of us don't even want to listen to silence because, for whatever reason, they're afraid of it. But when we think about it, I mean, how amazing is it that really, we don't have 2 mouths. We don't have, more than more than 2 mouths, but we have 2 ears. It's pretty spectacular that, whether, God, the creator, whatever it is that you believe in is how we got here, gave us 2 of those. And there's a purpose.
Yeah, it's very interesting because where there's a breakdown in relationship always comes down to communication. And it's such a big cliche out there when it says, oh, it's all about miscommunication. And the reason I call them cliche is because people don't even actually really understand what they're talking about. They're kind of blasé about it. And truly, it is, the fundamental problem, within all of us is our inability to communicate because we're so focused on wanting to share what we believe, what we think, what our message is versus hearing what somebody else's message is. And so we really don't get to hear what's going on with somebody else. It's always about me, 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 and not about the other person. And so I love that you bring this up because it is so important. And so I'd like to jump to the next one. And I'm going to skip a few because I want to leave a bit of a mystery for the listeners. And so if we go all the way to day 8, stick your neck out.
Yes.
Stick your neck out. Behold the turtle. He only makes progress when he sticks his neck out.
Yeah.
So what are you sharing with that?
Well, I don't, our neck, I'll say this, before I started writing this, I never really thought too much about my neck or to be grateful about it. And, as writing a book, you end up learning so much more than you ever realized and, more than you're ever able to communicate. When I started seeing about how much is involved in our necks, the fact that we have our larynx in it, which houses our vocal cords, which gives us the ability to speak, the fact that we have our esophagus and we're able to swallow food, there's and be able to breathe, all that stuff happens in that space in our neck, and turns our head side to side. It's so amazing. And the quote about, behold the turtle, he only makes progress when he sticks his neck out, is that, when we really, want to take time to be grateful for our necks, and be willing to just stick our neck out and be grateful for it, because that's not something that most people do. To do something different, be someone different than most people
and
are. Life radically changes.
And what's really interesting about that, and for anyone who understands energy healing and energy centers, we actually have 7 chakras, and the 5th chakra is around the throat area. And it's really about personal truth. It's your truth. It's your ability to speak up. And that's why I love what you put here, sticking your neck out. In essence, just sticking your neck out for who you really are. Being able to witness yourself and allowing others to witness the truth about you. And that, I think, is so powerful. And I think, that's why I guess people, if you don't like what somebody's saying, they try to choke your neck. And sometimes we do it in jest. And the truth is that that's also one of the scariest things in our life, just to be able to be ourselves and to speak our own truth. So I love that chapter.
And I love what you just said. I think, when we write a book for men, maybe we'll have to co-write it, and add some of those things in. I love what you just said.
Well, here's what's interesting. And, honestly, as a man, and I always love asking this question, especially because I'm a coach as well, and when I'm talking to people in relationships, and whenever I find somebody who's in a relationship, I'm very passionate in wanting to help them enhance their relationship, because I think it's one of the coolest things in the world. If you could have that forever relationship that's consistently exciting and everything else, it's just one of the most wonderful things in the world. It confuses me, why the divorce rate is so high. I understand why, but it shouldn't be that way, because one of the most beautiful things in life is to have that. And the reason I bring that up is because as a man, energetically, and most men will agree with this, but most men don't necessarily understand this, and most women don't understand this, is that the primary goal, if you will, the primary desire of any man is to make a woman happy. And there's a lot of underlying stuff with that, which I'm not going to go into. And so from the perspective of a man, it's really quite simple. I mean, we are honestly simple people. And so the more knowledge that we have, you could laugh, and I'm laughing too, and most men will try to assassinate me now. But the truth is that a book like this is really also designed for you guys. Because if you can just understand what a woman goes through, and the beauty of what that is, and the beauty that can, come out in absolute safety, where this woman can be vulnerable in the space where you just are there loving and respecting her, that can be so magical. And so not only is this book for women, 28 Days Naked is also a book designed for men. And I don't know if that was your intention, but I'm glad it's a result.
No, it wasn't so much. I definitely thought about women, but I love everything you just said. And you said at the beginning, you talked about just when I was going through my audition, and it talked about this in the book, is that I was going for an audition I'm an aerialist, and I just started last year, and now I'm 42, but most of these I started when I was 41, and most of the girls and women, but a lot of them are in their 20s, done gymnastics and dance all their lives, and so I thought I had a handle on all this like self-love stuff, and it's like, hey, I look great, I love my body, but then having to go in and put a leotard on, all of a sudden just brought all this stuff up again, and I'm like, men don't realize how much and how deeply this affects women. We get so riddled because we see all these images of like what something's supposed to look like, or a woman's supposed to look like, and we compare ourselves so much. And when I saw myself in the leotard, and I know I can acknowledge that I have a great figure that I've worked hard for. I eat well, I work out, but there's still that, oh my gosh, what about that little blip there? What about that? And I really had to go through this whole practice again for myself, where a man would just be like, oh, she looks hot. And that's it. And we go down this rabbit hole. And, I think it is great for men to understand, we need that space. We need you guys to hold that space for us and say, you're beautiful. Makeup or not makeup, like, you are beautiful.
And that is so true. And I'll say this with a little bit of tongue in cheek and jest. But, that's why God invented, plastic surgeons. And I know that because I'm one myself. And so we can fix those little things. And we will be talking about that later on more. So I want to jump to this one chapter, and I love the quote by Sophia Loren, but I'm not exactly sure that I totally agree with it. Because in my perspective as a plastic surgeon, working with many women over the years, particularly my specialty, which is breast surgery, but I love the title of that chapter, Breasts, Your Natural Jewels.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And not so much what Sophia is saying, and people can read that, in your book, and you must get the book, 28 Days Naked. So what are you talking about in this chapter?
So a lot of women either don't like their breasts because they're too big, or because they're too small, or because, they've had, 3 children and they're totally saggy, or, they haven't had any children and they're older and they're saggy. There's a reason. They'll find a reason, to not like them. And to me, what I've learned to love about having breasts is that it really is like, it sets us so apart from men. And obviously men have body parts that sets you apart from us as women. But when we think about the magic of our breast, that we can feed another human being with that's unbelievable. When I think about it, I'm just like dumbfounded. Like how, the fact that you can house another human and then feed it with your breast and give it has everything that it needs to grow, for months at a time, just from the milk that comes from it. And, with this chapter, it's like, I'm single and I don't have kids. And I know that a lot of other women, will feel the same way. They're like, well, I don't have kids. There's nothing great about my breasts. But really, they're so magical in the fact that, as a woman, you wear a shirt that, there's just the ever slightest so much of your breast showing. And I'm not talking about going out and, flaunting, but, just wearing a nice fitted shirt, and you smile at a man and you need help with something, you can get help with anything.
Right.
Right? I mean,
it's interesting you say that. And yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think one thing that is so not acknowledged, and this is my personal perspective, and I'm not speaking for the rest of the world, but in my personal experience, it just seems that the breast, the bosom, is so pivotal in all the identity of femininity, both from the woman's perspective and the man's perspective, that in so many different ways is so undervalued, misunderstood, misrepresented, or whatever you want to call it, when it's such a beautiful part of you. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that my intention is, being a plastic surgeon for 17 years, being a life coach, doing energy healing and things like that, is really coming up with a deeper perspective of beauty in general for women, and coming up with much better clarity, for all of us, that we can just feel comfortable with that part. Because one thing I do know, and this is very interesting, this is a very interesting, plastic surgery statistic, is that surgery of the breast is one of the more popular surgeries, and it's also resulting in so much life changes in women, greater confidence, and sometimes or oftentimes the best decision many women have ever made in their lives compared to buying a house, buying a car, or other things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And interesting enough too is that when, as a plastic surgeon, we modify or adjust one part of the body, oftentimes the other things that were disturbing the woman, are no longer an issue. And so, that's a conversation you and I will have after the break. But again, I love what you say here. It's your natural jewels, and there's so much to that, and just taking the time as a woman and as a man to recognize, the finer beauty, the finer details of what the bosom is all about is going to completely change your perspective of them in such a wonderful way. And so I just want to acknowledge you for that. And this is, again, Dr. Bart Rademacher, Prescription for Your Transformation. #Real People, #Real Conversation. Talking to Heather Esposito, an amazing woman. She's an author. She's a coach. She's a speaker. She's a gluten-free chef, first bakery in all of U.S., an intensive therapist, and read her book to understand what that's all about, on TV and so many other things. And we will be right back after this break.
We'll be back with Dr. Rademacher right after these. Stand Up and Speak Up with host Walt Grassel, sharing stories of people who have taken steps to overcome their fears and now lead stronger, more fulfilling lives. Are you ready to take that first step towards a different life? Join Walt as he shares his tales of triumph over stage fright and public speaking. Walt has performed stand-up comedy at the Hollywood Improv, as well as the Flamingo in Las Vegas, and wants to help you conquer whatever is holding you back. Join him and his guests for Stand Up and Speak Up, every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern on Radio Star Worldwide and on demand 24/7. Create Indestructible Wealth with Paul Mata is heard every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern on RadiostarWorldwide.com. Join Paul Mata every Wednesday as he shares his easy tips and strategies that traditional financial advisors won't tell you about, creating your own indestructible wealth. Each high-energy show will pull back the curtain to the financial industry and help you become exceptionally savvy about your own finances so you can make, sustain, and protect your wealth in any economy. From Wall Street to Main Street, if you're just starting out or already a multi-millionaire, Paul's innovative system will help you create indestructible wealth. Heard every Wednesday afternoon on RadiostarWorldwide.com. Welcome back to Dr. Rademacher's Prescription for Transformation. And now, once again, your host, Dr. Bart Rademacher.
All right, welcome back. And it's time to get naked. And I really mean that, guys, women and men as well. And do it on your own. Because if you do it with somebody else, all things are going to happen. And that's just not right. It's really
right.
about you recognizing you. And for the guys out there, what's really cool for a woman is when you get to own your masculine energy. And one of the best ways to do that is by doing it yourself, checking yourself out in the mirror, and being that masculine, not the macho, but the real authentic masculine energy, because that's one thing that women really crave, the real stuff, not the feigned stuff, not the big muscles injected or whatever. So I am delighted to be talking to Heather Esposito, 28 Days Naked, smartsexyliving.com. An absolute wonderful book, starting off from the top, luxurious hair, eyes that shine, ears to hear, 28 days, going down to your belly, to your legs, to your calves. And what I love what she's also done, she's also talking about your organs. It's interesting how easy it is to take so many things for granted. And the cool thing is that, one of her key messages is that food and lifestyle really affect everything. The most undervalued drug that is in our life is our food. It's funny, we're all worried about this and that and the other, but we don't stop to think about all the food that we're eating, particularly sugar. And sugar is a devastating thing. I actually gave up sugar for the most part. Sometimes I cheat, but my coffee, I'll just put some coconut oil in there, and I just love it, and I don't miss sugar. Sometimes I have a bit of chocolate, which is great. So what I want to finish off with Heather, and anybody's listening, get her book, 28 Days Naked. It's a bestseller. And check out her website because her insights are absolutely tremendous. But as a plastic surgeon and as a life coach myself, I'm very, very passionate about helping people just like Heather is. But one of the things that I'm particularly passionate about is beauty. And I'm also a professional photographer. I get to recognize that. And the thing that I feel that is just really lacking is a deeper understanding of what that really is. And there's a lot of people, I'm not going to get into kind of politics or any criticism of other people, but what seems to be happening is that a lot of what is happening in conversation about beauty is their personal agendas to promote their product, to promote their business, to promote their show, whatever it is. And in our culture, we're so caught up, with needing to be beautiful. And quite frankly, I think that's okay as long as you get to own it and as long as you get to understand it and as long as you're getting the right information.
So my question for you, Heather, and I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
What is your feeling about plastic surgery?
That's a great question. I think that for a lot of reasons, it's super necessary. If I was in a traumatic accident, was severely burned, or bones really broken, I would absolutely be coming to you. As far as plastic surgery, for the sake of just cosmetic stuff, I have no judgment. Because I've gotten my teeth fixed, like my 2 front teeth are crowns, because they got jacked up in a bike accident. So really, what's the difference of getting crowns versus getting a breast augmentation? Where's the line? So I can't say, I think it's wrong or I think it's right. It's really like, you talked about at the beginning of, living a life that's right for you. There are times, and I wrote about it in the book, like, I really struggled with my nose and my chin. I just hated them for so long. And if I had the disposable funds, I probably would have gotten some work done, but I didn't. And I've learned to love it. I have some friends who have had work done, and it's changed their life and how they interact with the world. So I think it definitely serves its place. And I think it's each individual's choice, of, what they're going to use it for. And just like anything carried to an extreme is a weakness. And, when women use it because they want to get it so that they can be, once they get it, then they're enough. Like, once I have bigger boobs, then I'll be confident. Or once I have, a better nose, then I'll be confident. And it really starts with the whole purpose of this book is the confidence comes from inside. It's never going to come from the outside source. And there are some things that are going to just help assist it. Like I said, with me having, crowns on my teeth that, got messed up in an accident, I feel better smiling because I have those crowns than if I had black little stubs there. So.
Right. You know what's interesting? I had my own reservations about cosmetic surgery, but intuitively, internally, I knew it was a good thing, even though I was not admitting it to my, because of all the criticism that was happening, against plastic surgery many years ago. But I was doing breast reconstruction. I realized, wait a second, someone who doesn't have breasts is really no different than the person that underwent surgery and has no breast either. And so the key that I always like to share with people, it all comes down to aesthetic integrity. A lot of that's lacking. And I can say that with absolute confidence because I'm right in the middle of the field and I see what's happening around us. And that's really unfortunate because women are such a vulnerable place for a lot of reasons. I'm not going to go into those details. Maybe, at some other time I'll describe that. But unfortunately, so many women are in a bad spot when it comes to cosmetic surgery. And so wrong decisions are made, all the time. But I do know that when it's done properly and when it's done with respect and when it's done with love, as I was talking recently to a wonderful colleague of mine, Dr. Vern Weisberg, up in Maine, is that when a woman looks at herself in the mirror and actually feels someone different, and we can help her have that image of herself in real time, how she really feels, it really changes everything as well. And so confidence comes from within, and it is a very, very key component. And, it's just like, life, when you have a lot of money, life is just a little bit easier sometimes. I mean, it's not that you're happier because of it, but a lot more things can happen because of it too. And it's the same thing with this. And so I really want to honor you because you're really very important. It's very important for so many women out there because it's giving them that opportunity, irregardless of what they're doing, whether it's with makeup, whether it's hairstyling, whether it's clothes, or whether it's with plastic surgery, that they really get to own all parts of them. And in 28 Days Naked, I think you've done a brilliant job doing that. And I really encourage so many people, everyone, men and women, just to get that book. So, Heather Esposito, 28 Days Naked, smartsexyliving.com. I'm Dr. Bart Rademacher, prescription for your transformation, tapping into that intelligence around us so that we can live the life that we desire. Thank you so much. Till next time.
Thank you so much, Bart.
Thanks for listening to Dr. Rademaker's Prescription for Transformation. Join Dr. Bart Rademaker live right here on Radio Star Worldwide each week or on demand 24/7.